Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance for our program is provided by the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. Today on Oklahoma Gardening, we are going back to the basics with some simple science segment. I share with you all about the parts of a flower. We head to Wagner to visit a garden that's giving back to the community. Shelley Mitchell has a great gift for that budding young scientist. And finally, we review what there is to know about plant diseases. Today we've got another simple science segment coming your way, and a lot of times we're walking through our garden and we're looking for the perfection that is in our garden. And while as gardeners a lot of times we see the imperfection, we see those weeds that need to be pulled and things like that, we're not talking about the garden as a whole today, we're talking about the flowers specifically. Did you know that there are perfect and imperfect flowers? That's truly what they are called. But before we get into what is a perfect and imperfect flower, we first need to talk about the parts of a flower. And in order to do that, we're going to use a simple lily here. An Easter lily is a great way to do that. Now you can see I've got a stem of lilies here, and this one got a little messy on us, and I'm going to explain what this is all about here. So we've got a lily, this is a complete flower, and this messy stuff is actually the pollen. Usually when florists get these and they start to open, they will pinch these off. You can see this one doesn't have any because this pollen will stain your clothes. So we're going to first start by looking on the outside of the flower. And while these all look like petals, these outside ones are actually called sepals. You can see here on the ones that are still buds, these sepals are what protect the flower as it's developing. They initially start out very green, but as the flower matures and gets closer to blooming, you can see how they're starting to get a little bit whiter until it's white. But you can see how it still has that kind of green spine to the back of it. Now these sepals open up and create a more floral display on the inside, inviting more insects to come inside. So we're going to go ahead and tear this particular flower right here apart so that we can dissect all of these parts of the plant. So the first thing we're going to do is take our sepals, and on this particular one we're going to find that there are 3 sepals. So we're going to go ahead and just pinch those off. 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to lay those right there for us to see. Now you'll find that we also have 3 petals on here. Now it's a little hard to tell on these white ones, but a lot of times the petals will have kind of tracks and markings that are basically creating an invitation for your pollinators to come inside and to highlight where they need to land on their flower. So this one has sort of some bumpy marks to kind of entice them to come down into the body of this flower here. So these are the petals. We're going to now remove those 3 petals. Again, it's a little messy because it does have some pollen on there as well. 1, 2, and 3 petals. So next we have what we call the male part of the plant. And in this case we have 6 of those, and there are 3 parts to the male part of the flower. And I'm going to go ahead and pull one of these off. So this whole thing is called the stamen. And if you think about it, men is in the word stamen, so you know it's the male part of the plant. That is composed of the filament that holds the anther, and inside the anther is the pollen. And you'll notice that these filaments, they're barely attached to the anther, and that allows them to sort of dance in the wind. Again, if you think a bee comes in here and kind of is nestling around in there, then all of a sudden that pollen's gonna then get on the bee. So that's what this is all about. We've got 6 of those. I've already pulled one of those off. So we're gonna take 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th one here, and our 6th one there. So you can see these again are the stamen, the male part of the plant. And then finally we have one last part, and this is the female part of our flower here. So you can see there's like a swollen area here, and this is the ovary. Then you have your style, which is actually a tube from your sticky stigma up here. It's sticky so that the pollen will stick to it. The pollen travels down this tube into the ovary, and that's how you get your seeds in all of your flowers that produce a fruit. So this basically is the whole female part. Again, it's all called the pistil, but comprised of the ovary, the style, and the stigma. So we're gonna go ahead and break this off too, so that we've got all 4 parts that are necessary to have a complete flower. That's your sepals, your petals, your stamen, and your pistil. Now, if any one of these 4 parts is missing off of a flower, sometimes flowers don't have sepals or petals, then they are considered incomplete. If a plant has all 4 of them, they are complete. But the 2 most important parts of any flower are the sexual parts of that, which is the male and the female parts of the plant, because that's what, again, produces the seed, which is, in essence, what the plant is trying to do. So if you have a flower that is complete and has all of these, you know that it is also a perfect flower. It's sort of like that whole thing that a square is a rectangle, but not necessarily a rectangle is a square. There you have it. You now know what makes a perfect flower for your garden. We are here in Wagner, Oklahoma at the Lincoln Enrichment Center. And this is a place of learning for people of all ages. And joining me today is John Jones, who is the executive director of this area, this center.
Right.
John, tell me a little bit. We've been talking for about 2 years. I think
Right.
our initial communication came about during COVID.
Right.
So how long have you guys been operating here?
Well, we've been here for a little over 4 years.
Okay.
This is very exciting for us to have you here. We've worked with Oklahoma Extension, the cooperative they've sent out. So many wonderful staff members that works with our kids. Will take stuff out of the garden, actually use it in cooking. So we love that partnership.
You really like to get the kids outdoors, right?
Absolutely. Get their hands in the dirt, and I found that they just take to it naturally. And it's I see why it's used so much for teaching instruction, because it really teaches the patience.
Yeah.
It teaches things aren't immediate. It teaches that there's work involved in things, but when they get to see things set bloom. Today we got a great guest arrival. Our swallowtail caterpillars appeared this morning. So starting to understand how nature works. We're very fortunate. A lot of our local gardeners have really poured themselves in, like Nancy Wagner, on showing us how to set up the native plants that are actually going to help our pollinators here.
Okay.
So we try to have it educational, but also beneficial for the community.
Yeah, and I know this actually started kind of as a service to the community, right? Tell me a little bit
Yes.
about the school system that changed their schedule and you saw a
Right.
gap there.
They went to a 4-day school week, and Dr. Suzanne and I, we don't have children, but we were traveling through and we saw kids out playing literally in the dirt down the street. So to now see them playing in this kind of dirt and this kind of yield is wonderful. But the 4-day school week in larger communities, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, you have things like Boys and Girls Clubs or large churches that have day programming. We didn't. And so many of our kids, we have a disproportionate amount of Section 8 housing here, kids at risk. We needed a free day service and program for the kids. And we didn't want it to just be a drop-off center.
Right.
We wanted it to be a place that taught life skills. And so to see the community come together here, and that's what we're hoping this serves as a model for other communities when we start, leveraging and pooling our resources.
Right.
We have 4 to 5 retired teachers. They couldn't get enough. They come here, one-on-one time with the students and reading, writing, math. We do have a laundry here, washer and dryer, but we want to expand and have a full, hygiene facility for our kiddos.
Right.
And just continue to expand this. Hopefully you'll get a nice shot on your way out and see what the community did here with a new playground for the kiddos. So we have a lot of plans here. Things got slowed up a little bit with COVID, but there's no stopping hearts that are passionate and focused.
So tell me a little bit about the age range, specifically on the kids that you're looking or trying to work with.
Well, because of our numbers being an all volunteer program, we really had to focus in on our younger kiddos right now.
Okay.
So we're really working pretty much with pre-K through 6th grade.
Okay.
Fortunately, we have a lot of exceptional high school students that come out here and volunteer. It's nice to have some talented, passionate young people with them. And so to see the different ages, this really is for all ages.
Okay.
We're really believing that we're going to get a long-term use of the facility here, or the property transferred to us, get the funding necessary where we can have staff and be open every day, have a community gathering center down here for our community, the grandmothers and grandparents with their kiddos, and have a wonderful place down here for the weekends for them to be able to enjoy.
Yeah, so your current schedule is just to fill during the summer 1 day a week, and then also specifically in the school year 1 day a week, is that correct?
We focus on that, but in all honesty, you drop by here, you may see us some days like today where we have 8 to 12 kids, or maybe other days we have 25 to 30 kids, but we're really in reality working with about 200, 250 kids and their families.
Wow.
We get calls, so there's a lot of things that we get to do.
So there's no commitment from the family to drop their kids off, or
No.
and it's free?
No, the only thing that we ask, like for today, is that they sign a release, so video or anything else that they can do, and then contact information.
Right.
And besides that, we're here to just love on these kids and let them know how special they are, because that's one of the reasons we were Brighter Futures. We don't think there's anything more important to our future than our children.
Yeah.
And we just need to fill some of those gaps and some of those voids and have a special place for them. So I'm so proud of this community and how it's come together for this.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a model for other places.
And you mentioned, all of the community that's gotten behind this, and the organizations, and how it was started to help with the kids, but you're seeing that it's affecting everyone in the community.
Yeah, it's really almost like a palette for relationships to take place here. And so people come out here kind of not knowing exactly what they're going to do, maybe an arts or crafts project, and then it just turns into so much more.
If somebody wants to get involved or wants more information, where should they find that?
They can go to our website, which you all have posted. It'll give them history, if they want to volunteer, also if they want to donate, and they can find out more about what we do here.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing this. It's amazing what the Wagner community has done.
It is, and we hope to have you back out again so you can update our progress here.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce you today to the third kit in the Gardens to Go series. This one is for about middle school and up, and a good chunk of its 11 activities have to do with water moving through plants, and then there's a few other fun activities. So we're going to demonstrate some of the things that in terms of water movement through plants. So the first thing is, we know plants get their water from the soil, and sometimes soil has a lot of water and sometimes it doesn't. So how does that make a difference to the plant? All right. Well, when water first gets into soil, if there's a lot of water, it saturates it. It saturates it to the point where there's water coming out and dripping because it has filled up all the water spaces and all the air spaces. Air spaces make up an important part of soil. So if you have all the air spaces filled, then there's no way for the plant roots to get the air they need, and in saturated soil, the plant will die. If you let the water get to the point where it's not dripping so much, then there's still air in there. The plant can be happy. It's called field capacity. It's got enough water for the plants, and it's still got air, so the plant can survive just fine. If you get to the point where there's no water in the soil. I mean, there's still water in here, but you'd have to suck it out, and plants just don't do that. So this is the wilting capacity. At this point, the wilting point of plants, they'll tell you that they need more water, and so they'll start wilting. And if they don't get water after that, then they die. So how does water get through a plant? Well, there's different kinds of roots, all right, because water goes in through the roots of a plant. There's fibrous roots, which anchor into the soil really well, like grasses. If you try to pull grass out of the ground, it's really resistant to coming because it's got all these fibrous roots. And then there's plants that have tap roots. So picture a carrot. It doesn't hold much soil. Like if you pull a dandelion up, there's not much soil. But the roots is where the water comes in the plant. And the way the water comes in is through something called capillary action. Water likes to stick to itself. It's called cohesion. So one example of capillary action is if you take a little piece of paper, in this case we'll take a little flower, and if you put it in water, it'll expand and start opening up that flower. So that's an example of capillary action, and that's what makes all the water stick to itself as it goes up the tree. All right? So water only goes up. So in this activity, you cut out a tree and you cut out some leaves and you make a little model, and with the arrows you show that water only goes from the roots up to the branches, up to the leaves and out. So if you were to take a plant like a tree and you were to cut it in half, you would see how water goes through a tree. So if you cut down a tree, in the middle is the heartwood. That's like when it was just a baby tree. Inside are called xylem, and those are the tubes that water goes up. As the tree grows, there's a cambium layer here that's represented by this orange. All new water tubes, all new xylem grow inside the cambium, and all new phloem, which has the sugar, grows outside. So all this water is going up through the middle of the tree. Now, it only goes up, so it has to get out of the tree at some point. So how does it do that? Well, on each leaf, you have openings called stomata, all right? And when the water gets to the hole, and the hole's there because oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged, but just like when you breathe, you lose water, so does the tree. So when the first molecule gets up here exposed to the sun and the air, it evaporates. But water likes to stick to itself, again, because of cohesion. So when that water molecule evaporates, it pulls the next one, it pulls the next one, it pulls the next one. So that is how water comes out of a tree. So that's the basic movement of water through a plant. This kit also has other activities. This one, we took a loofah plant, and you'll learn about the loofahs in the book. And we give you some soap, and they make their own little loofah soap. So they can use that to scrub during a bath. We also have an activity for germination tests. We give you some seeds that are not fresh, they're a little bit old, and you use a paper towel and some water, and you watch the seeds over a period of days to see how many of them actually germinate. And then you can see, like, if only half of them are germinating, I need to plant twice as many to get the amount that I want. We also have a phototropism activity that's in the book. You plant some seeds in a cup, you make a little cardboard box, make a little maze, and the plant will follow the light. So that's what these seeds are for. We also have a DNA extraction activity. We give you what you need to extract the DNA from whatever you want. Usually a strawberry works really well. And then the final activity is the forensic mystery. There was a horse stolen, and there's 3 ranches around, and no one knows which ranch took the horse. But you've got pollen all over the place, and different areas have different kinds of pollen. So the desert's going to have a different kind of pollen signature than the plains. Different, your backyard will be different than mine. It depends on what plants grow there. And so pollen, you'll see all different pollens look different. So you have different pollens in here, and you have to figure out what plants that pollen came from, and then you get a pollen signature from the different suspect ranches. And the rope that was left behind when they stole the horse has a certain pollen profile, so you compare it to see which ranch stole the horse. So this kit with 11 activities is made to be done by middle school age children, maybe 10, 11, 12 and up. No batteries required, no internet required, and it's $30. So if you want to keep your kids occupied over fall break, Thanksgiving break, Christmas break, spring break, summer break, we need a birthday present. This is a good thing to give your budding scientist.
If you're a part of any garden club or garden society, oftentimes this time of year, midsummer, you'll start seeing that the conversation switches from
Wow, my plants are doing so well this year.
to
Oh no! What's happening to my plants?
a lot of times, midsummer, we start seeing different symptoms and signs that tell us something is happening irregular with our plants. That can include spotting, curling, cupping, irregular growth on your plants, and even, for lack of a better word, oozing. Now, if you see any of these signs and symptoms, it might mean that you have a disease on your plant.
It must be a disease. But what's a disease?
A disease is a condition of a plant that impairs normal function and is typically manifested by distinguishing signs and symptoms. Well, you have your signs and your symptoms right there on the plant. In fact, that's probably what led you to think there's something wrong with your plant in the first place. But what is the disease? Well, the study of plant disease is also known as plant pathology. Fortunately, here at OSU, we have the Plant Disease and Insect Diagnostic Lab, where plant pathologists can extract samples, look under microscopes, and use tests to determine if any pathogens are present.
A pathogen? But what's a pathogen?
A pathogen is a bacterium, virus, or other microorganism that can cause diseases. If a pathogen is found to be present, then we can better know how to handle the situation. When a pathogen is found, this is known to be a biotic disease. The word biotic comes from the Greek word bios, meaning life. Biotic diseases are those that arise due to living organisms such as bacteria, fungi, viruses, and nematodes. Sometimes you might think you have a disease, but no pathogens are found. This is known as abiotic, or absence of living organisms. These are typically a result of environmental conditions such as soil, water, light, nutrients, chemical exposure, or even temperature that leads to the stress of the plant. Abiotic diseases are also known as physiological disorders. While the most assured way to identify the disease is to send a sample to the lab, there are often clues in the landscape that will tell you whether the disease is biotic or abiotic. Clue number 1. You are seeing the same symptoms on different types of plants. For instance, nutrient deficiencies will often cause the leaves of plants to turn yellow or purple. If you saw this happening on the foliage in all your various vegetable plants, this would be a clue that it is environmental, not a pathogen. Alternatively, biotic diseases that are caused by pathogens are often host-specific and will only target their preferred host. Keep in mind, however, they may like several plants from within the same plant family. For example, you might see the same problem on your squash as you do on your melons because they again are in the same plant family. But if you also see that on your corn, then it's likely an abiotic problem. This is why crop rotation is important, but that's another segment for another day. Clue number 2. Abiotic diseases or disorders can often be found in patterns or are uniform in their appearance in the landscape. This pattern or uniform appearance is due to the area of exposure to the environmental factor that's causing the symptoms. For example, frost damage on Bermuda grass can create a unique tiger stripe pattern in the fall when the frost begins to settle on the lawn. Clue number 3. Abiotic diseases are not contagious from one plant to another. In some cases, you might find that the plant will grow out of it or return to normal once the adverse environmental conditions have been removed or corrected. Clue number 4. Think about the weather. In fact, most biotic diseases are caused by fungi, and generally speaking, they like moist conditions and moderate temperatures. Now, if we've been experiencing hot, dry conditions, aka summer in Oklahoma, then the odds are that you're seeing more abiotic symptoms than biotic symptoms. And in fact, of all the labs across the country and the samples that are submitted, anywhere from 50% to 85% of those samples come back as abiotic problems, not an identified pathogen. Now, to make matters more confusing, sometimes abiotic symptoms can lead to biotic diseases, especially if you have abiotic symptoms that are affecting the leaves, the stems, or the roots. Depending on the severity, it can deteriorate the overall health of the plant, making it more of an opportunity for those pathogens to set in. This is known as a secondary biotic disease. While there are a plethora of problems that can plague your garden this time of year, understanding whether you might have an abiotic or a biotic disease on your plants can help you determine your next step.
Next week on Oklahoma Gardening, we turn our attention to Oklahoma City, where we visit a couple of well-known sites. To find out more information about show topics as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure to visit our website at oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. Tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater gem. We would like to thank our generous underwriter, the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is also provided by Pond Pro Shop, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, the Tulsa Garden Center at Woodward Park, the Oklahoma Horticultural Society, Smart Pot, and the Tulsa Garden Club.